Wellness disclaimer note. This script presents traditional herbal practices used in Amish households as historical and cultural information only, not as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. All wellness content is framed accordingly throughout. What if the most effective remedies for the common illnesses that disrupt your household every winter have been growing quietly in kitchen gardens for over 200 years? And the reason most people do not know about them is simply that they cannot be patented or mass-produced. Modern pharmacy shelves are full of products with long ingredient lists and short effectiveness windows. Products that manage symptoms rather than support the body's own processes. Products that come with side effect warnings longer than the remedy descriptions. And most households have a cabinet full of them, and most households still get sick every winter and reach for the same things that did not fully work last time. The Amish have a different cabinet, not mysterious, not supernatural. Just 14 herbs that have been grown, harvested, prepared, and used in Amish households for generations, with the specific knowledge of how to handle each one from the moment it is planted to the moment it is used. The preparation matters as much as the plant, and most modern herb users have never learned the preparation, which is exactly why they are not getting the results the plant is capable of producing. Today, I'm going to show you the 14 herbs at the center of Amish traditional household wellness practice and the 4 methods that make them work. By the end of this video, you are going to understand not just which plants the Amish use, but why. How they are grown and prepared determines whether those plants are effective or not. These are traditional practices used in Amish households. They are not medical advice and are not intended as a replacement for professional medical care. Step into the back garden of an Amish farmhouse in early autumn, and the first thing you smell is layered and specific. The sharp, clean scent of peppermint, the earthy depth of burdock root, the slightly sweet smell of chamomile, still in the last of its summer bloom, the medicinal green smell of plantain leaves catching the morning light. The herb garden behind an Amish farmhouse looks nothing like a decorative arrangement. It is a working garden, organized by use, not by appearance. The herbs that are harvested together are planted together. The ones that need more sun are in the south-facing beds. The ones that spread are contained. Every plant has a purpose in a position that reflects the purpose. Along the south wall of the house, a wooden drying rack holds bundles of cut herbs hanging in the late-season sun. Yarrow, goldenrod, elderberry stems, echinacea flowers. The colors fade as they dry, but the potency does not, because the drying method preserves what the harvest collected, and the sun completes the process at the temperature and pace that the plants respond to best. The Amish did not develop their herbal knowledge in isolation. It came from generations of practical use, the accumulated observation of what worked and what did not, what preparation produced results and what produced nothing. It passed down through families and communities until the knowledge became as reliable as any practice they maintain. The philosophy is direct. Know your plant. Grow it correctly. Harvest it at the right moment. Prepare it without destroying what makes it valuable. Use it with the knowledge of what it does. What if the difference between an herb that works and one that does not is less about the plant itself and more about everything that happens before it reaches the person who needs it? Here is the first method. 1. Amish soil preparation and heirloom, seed selection, chemical-free soil building, and heirloom seed selection. Growing herbs with the potency their genetics are capable of producing. Amish herb gardens grow in soil that has never seen synthetic fertilizer or chemical pesticide. 1. The herbs grow in beds prepared with finished compost and aged manure. The same soil building approach used in the vegetable garden, applied with the understanding that the chemical environment a plant grows in becomes part of the plant. Medicinal herb plants draw the specific compounds that make them therapeutically active from the soil, water, and sunlight available to them during their growth period. A plant growing in biologically rich soil with full mineral diversity has access to the building blocks for complete compound production. A plant growing in synthetically fertilized soil, which provides nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but lacks the trace minerals and biological diversity of well-composted soil, may grow visually identical but with a different internal chemical profile. Amish families save seed from their own herb plants across generations. selecting from the strongest, most aromatic, most vigorous specimens each season. Over multiple generations of selection, this produces locally adapted heirloom strains of each herb that perform better in that specific soil and climate than commercial seeds bred for uniform appearance and easy harvest. The visual of an Amish herb bed in midsummer is dense and alive. The plants established and full, no bare soil visible between them, the bed bordered by companion plantings that deter pest insects and attract the pollinators that some herbs require for their full compound development. An Amish family growing echinacea from seeds saved across 10 generations has an echinacea strain adapted to their specific soil and climate that produces visibly stronger aromatic compounds, measurable in the intensity of the smell when the roots and flowers are harvested, than commercially sourced echinacea grown in typical garden soil with standard fertilizer. The potency difference between herbs grown in biologically rich soil and those grown in conventional conditions is the practical reason Amish families maintain their own seed stocks rather than purchasing new seed each season. This practice has been continuous in Amish herb-growing communities for generations. Medicinal herbs produce their active compounds, the alkaloids, flavonoids, volatile oils, and other phytochemicals that give each herb its traditional household use in response to their growing environment. Mineral diversity in the soil supports complete compound synthesis. Biological activity in the root zone stimulates the plant's own defense and growth systems. Absence of synthetic chemical interference allows the plant's natural chemistry to express fully. Growing conditions are not incidental to medicinal potency. They are part of what determines it. You do not need acres of land or a commercial operation to grow potent herbs. A 4-foot by 8-foot raised bed, prepared with finished compost and maintained without synthetic fertilizers, produces enough of most common herbs to supply a household for a year. The investment in the soil is the investment in the potency of everything that grows in it. Choose one herb from the 14 featured in this video that addresses something your household commonly deals with. Research its growing requirements. Order heirloom seed from a reputable heritage seed supplier. Plan the bed it will go in. That is the beginning of your household herb garden. One plant, grown correctly in good soil. What if the moment you harvest an herb is as important as how you grew it? And what if most people who grow herbs at home are harvesting at the wrong time and losing much of the plant's potential before it ever reaches the jar? That is the second method. 2. Hand harvesting at the exact potency window. Potency window harvesting, collecting each herb at the specific moment its active compounds are at their highest concentration. Different parts of the herb plant, flowers, leaves, stems, roots, reach their peak compound concentration at different times during the growing season. Amish herb growers harvest each plant part at the specific window when its active compounds are highest rather than at the most convenient time or when the plant looks ready by general standards. Echinacea flowers are harvested when they are just beginning to open, before full bloom, when the alkylamide content that gives echinacea its immune-supporting properties is highest. Malign leaves are harvested before the plant flowers, when the mucilaginous compounds are most concentrated in the leaf tissue. Elderberries are harvested when fully ripe and deeply purple. Never before, when the compounds are still in their less active precursor forms. Roots like burdock, comfrey, and ginger are harvested in autumn after the plant's aerial growth has died back and the root has drawn the season's accumulated compounds down from the leaves and stem into concentrated storage. This autumn root harvest is one of the most important timing decisions in the Amish herbal calendar. Roots harvested in spring before this accumulation has occurred are significantly less potent than those harvested in fall after it. The smell of freshly dug burdock root in October is one of the most distinct and grounding smells in the Amish herb garden. Earthy and deep and slightly sweet. The smell of a root that has been concentrating compounds through a full growing season and is now ready. Pastoruntu, an Amish family harvesting their yarrow crop, takes the flower heads in the morning before the day's heat drives off the volatile oils. The specific compounds in yarrow that make it useful for traditional wound care and fever support. Harvesting in the afternoon after several hours of direct sun produces visibly less aromatic flowers with a noticeably different and less potent smell. The morning harvest timing is not superstition. It is the practical application of understanding that volatile oils are highest in cool morning conditions and reduced by heat exposure. This timing knowledge has been passed down in Amish herb-growing communities for generations as essential practical information. Medicinal compounds in plants are not static. They fluctuate across the day, across the season, and across the plant's life cycle in response to the plant's biological processes. Volatile oils are highest in the morning before heat drives them off. Root compounds peak in autumn when the plant is drawing resources into storage. Flower compounds are highest at the moment of opening when the plant is actively deploying them for pollinator attraction. Harvesting at the peak of these fluctuations captures the maximum compound concentration. Harvesting at other times captures a fraction of what was available. Learning the harvest timing for each herb you grow is the single highest leverage knowledge investment available in home herb growing. The same plant harvested at the wrong time versus the right time can produce dramatically different results. The timing information is available for each herb specifically. It requires learning once and then applying consistently every season. Research the specific harvest timing for the one herb you decided to grow this week. When does each part of that plant, flower, leaf, root, reach its peak potency? Write it in your garden journal next to the planting information. That note will tell you when to harvest when the plant matures. What if the way you store and preserve your herbs after harvest determines whether they retain their potency for 6 months or lose it in 6 weeks? And what if the Amish preservation method requires nothing more than sun, air, and the right timing? That is the third method. Section 3. Sun drying and barn curing for natural preservation. Traditional sun drying and barn curing. Preserving harvested herbs at the temperature and pace that retains their active compounds. Amish herb preservation relies primarily on two traditional methods: sun drying for leafy herbs and flowers, and barn curing for roots and woody stems. Both methods use natural conditions rather than artificial heat to remove moisture while preserving the volatile oils and other compounds that make each herb useful. Leafy herbs and flowers are harvested in small bundles, tied at the stem, and hung in a location with good air circulation and indirect light, traditionally under a roof overhang, in a well-ventilated barn, or on a covered porch. Direct sunlight on hanging herbs drives off volatile oils along with the moisture and should be avoided. The goal is warm, dry air circulation that removes moisture slowly over several days to 2 weeks, leaving the herb dry and brittle to the touch, but fragrant and aromatic. The smell test being the primary indicator of whether potency has been preserved. Roots are treated differently. After harvest and washing, they are sliced thin, no more than a 1/4 inch, and laid on wooden drying racks in a warm, dry space with good airflow. The slicing exposes more surface area to the drying air without requiring elevated heat that would damage the compounds. Root drying typically takes 2 to 3 weeks at ambient barn temperatures before the slices are fully dry and ready for storage. The visual of an Amish barn in October with drying herbs is one of the most richly sensory things in traditional household preparation. Bundles of yarrow, egg goldenrod, chamomile, and peppermint hanging in rows from the rafters, the light filtering through the gaps in the barn boards and catching the dried material. The smell of the entire herb harvest concentrated in one space. An Amish family drying peppermint from their herb garden produces dried peppermint with a menthol concentration measurable in the intensity of the smell and the cooling sensation on the skin, both indicators of the volatile oil content that makes peppermint useful in traditional household preparations. Commercially dried peppermint that has been processed with artificial heat at temperatures above those used in traditional sun drying shows visibly reduced aromatic intensity, the sign that volatile oil content has been reduced during the drying process. So the Amish dry slowly at ambient temperatures specifically because they understand that the oils they are trying to preserve are driven off by excess heat. The active compounds in most medicinal herbs are heat sensitive to varying degrees. Volatile oils, the compounds that give aromatic herbs their smell, and many of their traditional uses evaporate rapidly at elevated temperatures. Alkaloids and flavonoids in non-aromatic herbs degrade under sustained heat exposure. Traditional sun and air drying at ambient temperatures removes moisture without the heat damage that accelerates compound loss. The resulting dried herb retains a higher proportion of its active compounds than artificially heat-dried material and produces more potent preparations from the same quantity of dried material. Sun and air drying requires no equipment beyond a location with good airflow and protection from direct sunlight and rain. A covered porch, a well-ventilated room, or a simple wooden drying rack under a roof overhang is sufficient. The investment is zero beyond the time to bundle and hang the harvest. The potency retained by proper drying is the difference between herbs that produce consistent results and herbs that seem to do nothing. If you have any dried herbs in your kitchen right now, smell them. A potent dried herb has a strong, immediate scent. Peppermint that smells strongly of menthol, chamomile with a clear apple-like scent, echinacea with its characteristic earthy pungency. If the smell is faint or absent, the volatile oils have been lost and the herb has limited potency remaining. In this smell test is the Amish quality check. Apply it to what you already have. What if taking the dried herbs you have grown and preserved and turning them into preparations your household can actually use was simpler than you think? And what if the Amish preparations that have worked for generations require only the herbs themselves and a few basic kitchen items? That is the fourth method. 4. Turning herbs into salves, teas, tonics, and poultices. Traditional herb preparation methods. Making the preparations that allow each herb's properties to be used by the household. Amish households prepare their herbs into 4 primary forms: teas, oil infusions, and salves, tonics, and poultices. Each form suits different herbs and different traditional uses. The preparation method determines how the herb's compounds are extracted and delivered, which is as important as the herb itself. Teas are the simplest preparation. Dried herb material, 1 to 2 teaspoons per cup, is steeped in water that has been brought to a boil and then removed from heat. The water should not be actively boiling when it contacts the herb. Boiling water drives off volatile oils from aromatic herbs before they can infuse into the liquid. A covered steep of 5 to 10 minutes follows. The Amish cover the cup or pot during steeping specifically to capture the steam that carries volatile oils back into the liquid, rather than losing them to the air. Peppermint, chamomile, elderberry, red clover, and yarrow are among the herbs most commonly prepared as teas in Amish households. So oil infusions and salves begin with dried herb material. Never fresh, which contains moisture that causes infused oil to go rancid, placed in a clean glass jar and covered with a carrier oil such as olive oil. The jar is placed in a warm location, traditionally near a wood stove or in a sunny window, for 4 to 6 weeks, allowing the oil to slowly extract the fat-soluble compounds from the herb. The resulting infused oil is strained and can be used directly or combined with melted beeswax to produce a salve. Comfrey, calendula, plantain, and arnica are traditional Amish choices for oil infusions used externally on the skin. Tonics are long-infused preparations. Herbs steeped in raw apple cider vinegar or honey for extended periods to create a shelf-stable, potent preparation. Garlic honey. Raw garlic cloves submerged in raw honey and left for 4 to 6 weeks is one of the most commonly prepared Amish household tonics used for respiratory and immune support through winter months. Poultices are the simplest external preparation. Fresh or rehydrated dried herb material applied directly to the skin and held in place with clean cloth. Plantain poultices for insect stings and minor skin irritations are one of the most practically immediate Amish herbal applications. The leaf chewed or crushed to release its compounds and applied directly at the site of the irritation within minutes of need. And the smell of an Amish herb preparation kitchen in October is one of the most complex and satisfying domestic smells there is. Warm oil infusions near the wood stove, releasing the specific scents of the herbs macerating in them. Apple cider vinegar tonics aging on the shelf. Dried herb bundles overhead, adding their ambient aromatics to everything below. An Amish household maintaining a complete winter wellness preparation routine produces the following each autumn from their own herbs: mullein leaf tea preparations for respiratory support, comfrey-infused salve for muscle soreness, elderberry tonic for immune support, garlic honey for coughs and congestion, and dried peppermint and ginger for digestive preparations. These 4 to 5 preparations address the majority of common winter household wellness needs from plants grown, harvested, and prepared entirely on the property. The preparation process that produces them is straightforward enough to be maintained by every adult in the household with basic kitchen equipment. Each preparation method extracts different types of compounds from the herb material and delivers them to the body through different pathways. Water-based teas extract water-soluble compounds and deliver them orally in a quickly bioavailable form. Oil infusions extract fat-soluble compounds that are most useful when applied topically. Vinegar or honey tonics extract a broad spectrum of compounds and preserve them in a shelf-stable form that lasts through the winter. Poultices deliver compounds directly to the skin surface at the site where they are needed. Matching the preparation method to the herb in the traditional use ensures that the compounds the herb contains are actually reaching the household member in a form they can benefit from. You can make a complete, functional Amish-style herb tea this week from dried herbs available at any natural food store. Following the covered steep method rather than the typical open steeping that drives off volatile oils. The difference in taste and in the experience of using the preparation properly is immediate and confirms the value of the preparation method before you have grown a single herb of your own. Make 1 herb tea this week using the covered steep method. Bring water to a boil, remove from heat, add 1 to 2 teaspoons of your chosen dried herb. Cover the cup completely with a small plate or lid. Steep for 8 to 10 minutes. Remove the cover and notice the condensation on its underside. Those are the volatile oils returning to the liquid rather than escaping as steam. That is the practical difference the preparation method makes. The 14 herbs. The 14 herbs at the center of traditional Amish household wellness practice. Mullein, traditionally used for respiratory support, particularly as a tea for the lungs and throat. Comfrey, traditionally prepared as an oil infusion for external use on muscles and joints. Echinacea, traditionally prepared as a tincture or tea for immune support at the first sign of illness. Yarrow, traditionally used as a tea for fever management and wound care support. Peppermint, traditionally prepared as a tea for digestive support and respiratory comfort. Plantain, traditionally used as a fresh poultice for skin irritations and insect stings. Chamomile, traditionally prepared as a tea for digestive comfort and restful sleep. Ginger root, traditionally prepared as a tea or tonic for nausea and warming support. Arnica, traditionally prepared as an oil infusion for external use on bruised or sore muscles. Garlic, traditionally prepared as a honey tonic or raw preparation for immune and respiratory support. Elderberry, traditionally prepared as a syrup or tonic for immune support through winter months. Goldenrod, traditionally prepared as a tea for sinus and respiratory comfort. Red clover, traditionally prepared as a tea for general nutritive support. Burdock root, traditionally prepared as a decoction or tincture for liver and skin support. And these traditional uses are presented as cultural and historical practices of Amish households. They are not medical claims and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice. I want to tell you about the chest congestion that sent me down the path of actually understanding how Amish herbal preparation works. I had been sick with a stubborn chest cold for 8 days. I had tried 3 different over-the-counter products. None of them had done much beyond temporarily suppressing symptoms and leaving my throat uncomfortably dry. I was frustrated and honestly a little desperate for anything that would help me sleep through the night. A neighbor suggested I try a mullein and peppermint tea. I had both herbs in my kitchen, dried, purchased from a health food store. I made the tea the way I always made tea. Boiling water, a bag or loose herb, steep, drink. It tasted fine. It did not do much. That winter, I attended a small community gathering where I met an older woman from a farming family that had Amish roots. She asked how I was doing, and I mentioned still being congested from the earlier cold. She watched me pour myself a tea from the communal pot, and she stopped me. She said, "You are not covering it." I said, "What?" She explained about the covered steep, about why it mattered. She covered my cup with a small plate and told me to wait 10 minutes before uncovering it. The tea that came out of that cup smelled nothing like what I usually made. The peppermint was intense. The menthol reached my sinuses before I even drank anything. I said, "Why does that make such a difference?" She said, "Because you are keeping what the plant put into the water instead of letting it go into the air." I have covered every herb tea I have made since that evening. It sounds like such a small thing, but the difference in the experience of drinking an herb tea prepared correctly versus one prepared carelessly is immediate and convincing. The ruined salve I mentioned was a different lesson. I tried to make a comfrey salve the following spring, heated the oil herb mixture on the stove to speed up the infusion, and produced a dark greenish oil that smelled almost burnt and had none of the clean herbal quality of the comfrey-infused oil I had smelled in that woman's kitchen. I had cooked the compounds out of the herb rather than gently drawing them into the oil. Herb preparation teaches patience by making impatience expensive. The Amish have always understood this. The preparation is not a formality, it is the work. 3 mistakes most home herb users make that reduce or eliminate the potency of what they prepare. 1. Steeping herb tea in uncovered cups or pots. The volatile oils that give aromatic herbs much of their traditional value evaporate with the steam when a teacup or pot is left uncovered during steeping. An open-steeped peppermint tea loses a significant portion of its menthol content to the air before it is ever consumed. The Amish cover every herb tea preparation, cup, pot, or vessel, during steeping specifically to capture the steam and return the oils to the liquid. The fix is a small plate over the cup. 10 minutes, lift the cover and notice the condensation on its underside. That is what you were keeping rather than losing. I made tea without a cover for years before I understood what I was doing. 2. Using artificial heat to speed up oil infusions. The patience required for a 4 to 6 week slow infusion near a wood stove or in a sunny window is the patience that produces a potent infused oil. Applying direct stove heat to speed the process damages the compounds being extracted, particularly the volatile oils and heat-sensitive alkaloids that are most therapeutically active. The Amish use warm ambient heat, the steady warmth near a wood stove or in a sun-warmed window, specifically because it is gentle enough to facilitate extraction without causing degradation. The fix is to make the infusion correctly and wait. There is no shortcut that produces the same result. So 3. Using fresh herb material in oil infusions. Fresh herb material contains significant moisture that introduces water into the oil infusion, creating conditions where bacteria and mold can grow and causing the oil to go rancid before the infusion is complete. The Amish always use fully dried herb material for oil infusions, dried to the point where no moisture is released when the herb is pressed between fingers, specifically because they understand that moisture and oil in combination create preservation problems that dried herb material avoids entirely. The fix is patience at the drying stage before the infusion begins. A properly dried herb produces a stable infusion. An improperly dried one produces a spoiled one. Here is what connects all 4 of these methods and why they represent something larger than a list of herbal tips. Every aspect of Amish herb practice, the soil building, the timing of the harvest, the careful preservation, the deliberate preparation, is an expression of a relationship with plants that treats them as complex biological resources rather than raw ingredients. Modern consumer culture has flattened that complexity. Herbs are purchased pre-dried in standardized amounts, processed under conditions optimized for shelf life and shipping efficiency rather than potency, and prepared in ways that are convenient rather than effective. The result is that many people have tried herbs and concluded they do not work, when what did not work was the quality and preparation of what they tried rather than the plant itself. Here, the Amish approach restores the complexity. You grow the plant in the soil, and with the practices that support complete compound development, you harvest it at the moment when those compounds are at their peak. You preserve it at the temperature and pace that retains what the harvest collected. You prepare it in the form that makes those compounds available to the person who needs them. Each step serves the next. The good soil makes the potent plant. The potent plant at the right harvest time produces the highest quality dried herb. The correctly dried herb produces the potent preparation. The correct preparation delivers what the plant grew to provide. Nothing wasted, everything purposeful. The household that grows, harvests, preserves, and prepares its own herbs operates a closed wellness loop that has been sustaining Amish families through generations of ordinary illness and seasonal challenge without dependence on what pharmacy shelves offer. That self-sufficiency in household wellness is built one plant and one correct preparation at a time. 4 methods that together explain why Amish herbal preparations are more effective than most store-bought equivalents. Chemical-free soil and heirloom seed selection that produces herbs with the complete compound profile their genetics are capable of. Potency window harvesting that captures each herb at the moment its active compounds are highest. Traditional sun-drying that preserves what the harvest collected without heat damage. When in correct preparation methods that deliver those compounds to the household in the forms that make them available and useful. Start with one preparation this week. Cover your next herb tea during steeping. Make a garlic honey tonic in a jar on your counter. Try the smell test on the dried herbs already in your kitchen. One correct preparation demonstrates more about what is possible than any amount of reading. If this video gave you something worth knowing, share it with someone who has tried herbs and concluded they do not work. The herbs may not have been the problem. The preparation almost certainly was. Before you go, I want to ask you one question. Which of these 14 herbs do you already grow or have in your kitchen right now? And have you ever prepared it using any of the methods described in this video? We'll drop it in the comments. I want to know where people are starting from with their herb practice, because the answers I get shape what I cover in more depth in future videos. And next week, I am going to show you exactly how the Amish grow an entire year's worth of medicinal herbs in a surprisingly small backyard patch. The specific layout, the companion plantings that reduce pest pressure, and the one design principle that determines how much the patch produces in its first season versus its 5th. If you want to grow your own herb supply rather than purchasing dried herbs that may have lost most of their potency before they reached you, this is the video you need. That is next week. Be there.